All right, we have to talk about Expedition 33. That is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And in the words of my daughter, why do we have to talk about something, right? Anytime I say we have to do something, why do we have to? You need to, or you just want to do something? But nah, for this, we definitely have to talk about it. I am now done with the game. Spent I think it was 72 hours in the whole thing, and yes, you've been seeing a lot of people raving and ranting about it probably over the last month or so, but it's well deserved. Sometimes things come out and you think it's a bunch of just people just getting paid to say things or people just gassing it up, but nah, I can tell you this game is the full package. We're going to break everything down, what I liked, what I didn't like, what made this a generational game in my opinion. We'll break it all down in this review. So if you are new to the channel, you do like these type of reviews, these type of games and coverage of game, make sure you do hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and let's get right into this review. So just some small, background information on the game. So this game does come from Sandfall Interactive. So this is their first game. They're an indie studio. They are French, so you will see a lot of that influence in the game from, the Parisian kind of like swag or atmosphere, the little French words they'll say on different occasions, some of the architecture, things like that. And the game took around 5 or a little under 6 years to complete, and it was made from a few devs that used to work at Ubisoft, believe it or not. And that was kind of the running joke. They were like, okay, why can't Ubisoft put out a game like this? But either way, they did branch off of them. It is a studio of around 33 or 34 developers, which was fitting for this game title. But just something that a lot of people were kind of, I don't want to say wrong about, but kind of overlooking is yes, they did have a lot of funding. They did get, and some outside help sourcing out contract workers as well to work on the game. So it's not just 33 people working on the game, but the company's core, staff is around 33 or 34 people. So still pretty impressive. The game did drop for $50 and was day one in Game Pass. We did see it at the Xbox Summer Showcase last year, and then we did see it at the Developer Direct earlier this year in January, and it was easily my most anticipated game. Like the same way I felt about Metaphor when I first saw it, I was like, oh no, this is like, before I even lay hands on it, I already know. I watched a bit about the game, watched some of the coverage, I saw the voice actors. Like you got Charlie Cox, who, you get a game like this and Daredevil in the same year, crazy. You got Ben Starr, who's been killing it, especially from the Final Fantasy side and things like that. A bunch of other great voice actors part of the cast, so they definitely did well as far as setting up the game for success. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about the presentation a little bit. So the presentation, like I said, it does have that Parisian, when you first start the game, that Parisian atmosphere. There's people wearing, a few people wearing berets, or like, I don't think they're called ascots, but like the bandana scarf things that they wear, and the striped shirts and things like that. And even the language, a lot of the voice casts are English, like British, but they do have a little bit of the, vous souhaitez avec moi ce soir, oui, oui, escargot. They got a lot of that going on. Oh, I hope to. All right, if you're French and you're watching this, listen, I'm just making jokes, all right? But yeah, there's a lot of that going on. It is an Unreal Engine. And, when you get to the main continent of the game, you do see so many different types of environments. There's snow area, there's forest area, there's a dark like sunken ship type of area. There's a million different environments that you can traverse through the game, and it just looks so good. Like it almost looks like a like hand painted, like watercolor. It's like the colors, the splashes, everything that comes together. And we'll talk more about the combat and everything, but just the combat menu, or just flipping through the menus, when they were doing previews for the game, some people were saying like, okay, it looks a little overwhelming, but it did without context. When you start playing the game, you start seeing like, yes, the menu is very stylish, very Persona-like, but once you understand the concepts and it starts getting you new features and concepts as you're playing the game and new ways to battle and interact and build your character, then it doesn't seem as overwhelming because you kind of understand what everything is. But definitely everything looks really good, regal. There's a lot of black and gold kind of used throughout the game, so they definitely did really good with the presentation. There are lots of different outfits. You know, I won't show a whole bunch just if you want to find them on your own, but the different outfits, different hairstyles, and things like that. There's even an option in the menu, which I found later, but it's you can choose if you want the outfit that you put on the character to show during cutscenes. I guess, you know, if something's kind of serious or something like that, you don't want to be sitting there in a bathing suit or looking, you know, stupid. It looks, it does look kind of weird. That did happen to me a couple of times, but I think they did a really good job. You know, with the presentation was everything. That's what really drew me when I first saw the game. And so let's get into the story a bit. So the story of the game is you are part of Expedition 33. So you're saying, okay, what does that mean? So there's this being called the Paintress, who every year she paints a different number and it's counting down. You know, last year was 34 and then this will be 33. And anybody above that age just gets wiped out. It's called the Gamage. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that the right way, but the Gamage, all the characters that's away. So it's kind of like a doomsday just lurking out in the distance that everybody gets to see. And there are these expeditioners who go to then, you know, try to figure out like, oh, hey, how can we stop the Painters? How can we stop this from happening? And each expedition that goes, obviously they fail. That's how you get to Expedition 33. And speaking of Expedition 33, just the cast as a whole, just everyone that's going along with you on this expedition. I mean, Gustav, really cool main character. He's the one who invented the whole Lumina system just from the Pictos and everything. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the gameplay of the game, but he's cool. Then you have his adoptive sister, Mael, she's only 16, but she's willing to go with him on this expedition, you know, even though she has about probably 10 years left of her life, but she's willing to go out, you know, fight the Nevrons, which are these creatures that you do fight on the continent outside of Lumiere. You got Lune, who's, you know, the daughter of these scientists or inventors, but she's also has like an artistic side to her. And all these characters and more that you'll meet throughout the game, you'll see that their abilities during the combat, which we'll talk about a little bit later, also kind of influence, you know, what their different abilities and things are. It kind of goes with their personality. But each expedition, they kind of set the path for the next expedition that comes after them. That's why, you know, you'll hear the different phrases throughout the game, like for those who come after, we continue, things like that, where you're fighting not just for yourself because you don't think your lifespan's going to be that long, especially now that you're at 33. You know, there's people that are, they have to think about, do they want to have kids even, because you'll only be there. Some people are only there to raise their kid till they're like 6 years old, and there's a lot of orphans and things like that. Like it's a very grim world when it comes down to it. As beautiful as it looks and everything, there are a lot of dark elements in the game. But, you know, you're hoping that as part of Expedition 33, you will be able to finally, you know, stop the Paintress and things like that. And there's so many just like discovery moments, twists and turns, and every time you think you figured out the story in like the game, it just another thing comes, like another thing changes. And you know, again, not going to get into spoiler territory, but just anticipate as you're playing it that everything you think you know nothing. Like that's all I can say. Every time you think, all right, I got this down, or this is the end, or I fully understand and grasp the concept of this, is they, and that's what they get high praise from me for. Not just the presentation, but just the concepts of this story and how everything kind of intertwines and weaves in and out was really, really well thought out. And you would think this was a AAA, you know, game that took 7 or 8 years to make with, you know, 1 million people on the staff and $200 million, but they really, 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 they did it. Like, I don't know how else to say it. They really did it. And the other cool aspect of the game is, you know, there are, in a lot of games, there are these maybe notes or things you might find around from previous people that were in the area. There are these things called journals that you can find from previous expeditions, and you can even find their bodies lying around, which is a little, again, dark. But you find these journals, and it really helps you piece together, you know, what was going on with these other expeditions, not just for a cool, you know, Easter egg or anything, but it actually helps materialize a lot of the story because, like I said, it does get I don't want to say complicated, but a little out there. And these journals really help you to kind of piece a lot of it together because, some of the story isn't necessarily said immediately. And even when you read certain parts of the journals that you find, they and their voice notes attached to it. So you really get the emotion coming from the expeditioners. But when you find it, sometimes your characters will react to what they read or what they heard. Sometimes they won't, sometimes they do, and that really shows you like how important that is when it comes to the story and helps you to push further in your expedition. All right, now the main part, the gameplay, which man, they when I say this came at the perfect time for me personally because there are these, we call them gateway games, right? Like maybe you're not fully into a certain genre, but you play this game or maybe even a gateway show or movie, and then it brings you into a whole new genre. You would say with like anime, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not into anime, the weird yelling in school and all that other stuff. I'm not into big colorful pink eyes. I'm not into that. But you show them Death Note and it's like, oh, this is anime. Then you show them Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. It's like, okay. And then now they can get kind of into it. So for me, this game was kind of like a mix between like Persona, Final Fantasy, and like a Souls game. That sounds insane, but trust me, it really, really works really well. Like for me, I wasn't really into turn-based video games outside of Pokemon, but that was more so because I liked Pokemon, not necessarily turn-based games. I got into Sea of Stars a few years ago, and then when it came to Dark Souls games, I wasn't really into them. A couple years ago, played Elden Ring last year, so those elements kind of helped me when it came to this game. So it is a turn-based game. You do have like a main overworld. There are optional, enemies to fight sitting there, but then there are these hub worlds that you can go into. Sometimes you can go to one where you're way under leveled and it'll tell you like, hey, it's a dangerous area before you go in here. So make sure you go in when you start a fight. You have free aim, which is you can do like a little bit of chip damage beforehand, especially early on. If you want to aim at a certain weak spot on the enemy, you can do that. That'll kind of take a lot of their health away. Some enemies, it'll stop them in their tracks if they were charging up for a certain attack. You have your regular attack, and then you also have your skills. And now your skills use, in most games it would be considered like mana or whatever's AP or action points. And you get more of these when you do a regular attack and every time you go for another turn. Now with your skills, you have obviously a skill tree, and the cool thing is you do get to respec if you have a certain item, you can respec and then change your skills up, because throughout the game you might have used whatever you had to get whatever skills you need at the time, but then you want to change it up, switch your build up. Maybe you've gotten skills that give you more AP and you want to use stronger skills and you're wasting slots on these, weaker skills and things like that. And then each character has their own way of playing. Every single character has their own way of playing. Gustav, he has the overcharge where after a certain amount of actions, he can do a really strong attack. Mael, she has her different stances, like a fencer, where you have an attack stance where you do 50% more damage, but you also take 50% more damage. You have your virtuous stance where you do 200% more damage, which makes her a very broken character. You got Lune, who is probably the coolest character, I think, in the entire game, where she has this like stain system where there's different elements, so fire, ice, electric, earth, and light. And when you do an attack of that element, you then get a new stain for that. And then certain attacks that she does actually have added effects or can be stronger based on certain stains that you have. So definitely, the amount of thought they put into this game is amazing. When you're not in the overworld, you have, of course, as every RPG or JRPG has, as a campsite where you can rest, upgrade your weapons, upgrade other things, and also get closer to some of your companions and party members. So something, again, like I said, I tried to stay away from a lot of the previews, but I think something that was really cool was essentially like a social link system. If you play Persona, where you can sit around a campfire, talk to certain characters or party members, you'll be able to spend time with them, get closer together, and then level up your relationship, and then that will eventually add different super powerful moves and things like that you can unlock. Again, if you want to figure that out, you'll play the game. I don't want to spoil too much, but these, relationship links are pretty cool, as well as, again, getting to know the characters, because a lot of them are deep. They have different motivations, they have different things that they're fighting for, and things like that. Obviously, everyone wants to stop the Paintress, but everyone has like a deeper motivation for what they are fighting for, and it's really cool to really see that come to fruition. And to go along with that, all of that, the really cool thing that they added was, like I said, with the timed presses. So when you do an attack, you'll see a wheel, you press A or X or whatever you're playing on, spacebar, I think, if you're on PC, and you might do a stronger attack or added effects. Sometimes if you do it wrong, you might take damage, like Lune when she does fire attacks. You also have parrying and dodging. That's where the Dark Souls effect comes into play. And to be honest, I don't recommend dodging at all. Once you get the hang of parrying, it is just way more advantageous. Every time you parry, you get extra AP, and then if you parry every hit in a combo, all you gotta do is study the enemy a few times, notice their patterns. If you parry everything, you do a counter attack. Sometimes it's just you. Sometimes you find a boss, all 3 of your party members will then do a counter attack that'll do a ton of damage, build their break meter where you can break them and stun them, and then do extra damage after that. So again, dodging is a lot easier, but to me, if you can get the parrying down, definitely do it. The only time I was dodging, to be honest, was if I was using a certain character and the element of their weapon would give the opponent more health, then I would have to dodge. But the real standout feature when it comes to the gameplay and the combat is the Pictos and the Luminas. So the Pictos are the special, you could call them like buffs that you can put onto your character. Each character can have 3 at a time, and they'll give you a certain skill, like you could burn the enemy when you shoot them, or you can go again after your turn, or you get more AP whenever you defeat an enemy. Luminas are, if you master a Picto, which is you use that character and you win 4 battles while having that Pictos equipped. Kind of think of it as an extra Pictos on you while you don't have to have it equipped, by using these things called Lumina points. The Pictos also give you a stat boost that is random. So there might be a Pictos with an effect that you don't care about. Like, let's say it's, I don't know, your first attack is really strong or something, but that's only a one-time thing. But it gives you, let's say, 500 extra health or 12% on your critical attack. It's like, oh, okay, that makes more sense to have as a Pictos, because as a Lumina, you do not get those added stat boosts. So then you kind of gotta, mix and match, kind of play around with it, see what works for certain characters and things like that, and then make your decision from there. And it gives the game a total, amount of customizable or customability. I don't know if the customizability, I think that's a word. I don't know. It's a word now, but yeah, so really cool system with all of that. Now, coming off of that, let's talk about a little bit of tips and tricks. Some of these things you might find out on your own, some things I wish I knew. So the first thing is what I just said about the Pictos and the Luminas. I wasn't paying attention to the stat boost. So certain Pictos, I was like, I don't like that effect at all. But then I didn't realize, okay, but it's giving me a ton of critical hit rate, a ton of defense, a ton of speed, all this kind of stuff. So definitely pay attention to that before you make a decision. You also want to pay attention to how many Lumina points that Pictos will cost if you don't have it set as a Pictos. If you don't have it, sometimes you're paying 15, 20 points to have something, and it's not worth it. You might as well just throw it on as a Pictos, have it set, and take the effects of it and until you get something better, because there are levels to some of these Pictos. You can find an upgraded version. Then, until then, just keep it set there. The other thing I would say is when it comes to your weapons, so make sure you are upgrading the attributes. So your attack, your health, all that, those scale differently depending on the character and the weapon that you're holding. So some characters, health will be, if you add in a point attribute to it as you level up, it'll also give you more attack or more speed or something like that. Not as much as if you had put the point directly on that stat, but it is like, okay, you upgrade one stat and you're getting 2 or 3 upgrades along the way. So certain attributes like the defense or critical rate are attack or anything like that. If you have a certain weapon and you upgrade one of those stats, it'll only update that stat. But if you look at it, there'll be a, you know, inclination of it. It'll be like B or S or A or whatever, a level next to that attribute, and then you can upgrade and level up everything along the way, so you're not just having one stat just being, you know, overpowered in one stat but then really bad in another stat. The other thing I would say is make sure you have a backup weapon. So we all fall in love with, you know, one weapon, we're upgrading, but then you get to the point where you find a boss or someone that will have a weakness or maybe is resistant to the weapon that you have, and now it's a lot tougher to fight the enemy. Or maybe worse than that, they absorb the element that you're using. So make sure you always, you know, have, let's say you have a level 15 weapon, make sure you have like a level 11 or 12 like ready to go. And you'll find weapons from beating enemies or whatever, but make sure you're definitely like buying some if you can, upgrading them when you can, and things like that, just so you're not stuck with just one weapon and then it becomes obsolete. The other thing I'd say in regards to the Pictos is make sure, so in order to get them to be Illumina, like I mentioned earlier, is you master them. So you do 4 fights with the Pictos, and then that'll be able to equip it to every one of your party members as long as you have the Lumina points for it. So my suggestion is, as soon as you get a Pictos that you think is really good or that you want other people in your party to use, even if you don't, just to get it out the way, make sure you equip it. Even go back to like an area, maybe some weaker enemies, somewhere you can just fight, get it, you know, get 4 wins real quick, master it, and now other people in your party can use it. Because you always get to a point where you're like, dang, I wish all my party members had that, or 2 party members had this ability, but they can't because you didn't master it, and now you're fighting these hard battles, and it becomes a whole grind. So I say as soon as you get it, just try and equip it, get the mastery, and, you know, go from there. Now this last one, I can't even confirm because I saw it in a video and I had already beat the game at this point. But so as you're going through these hub worlds, or not hub worlds, but, you know, you have the main overworld, and then, yeah, I guess there are hub worlds. You go in, they're each like levels. There's main paths, and then there's branching paths and things like that where you can go explore, fight more enemies, find new items, you know, Lumina points, Pictos, things like that, outfits. You apparently, there are lamps strategically placed so you know this is the main path, so it's easy to be able to, there's no waypoint, so you don't know if you're going the right way, the main path, or an optional path. So apparently, I don't know, someone after you play the game, or someone that's played the game and noticed it, come back and correct me, but apparently lamps will let you know which way is the main way. So someone correct me on that. Again, I beat the game already, so there's no way for me to kind of verify that, but, you know, I just heard that. So for people that are starting out, you know, check it out, see if that works, and that'll help you so you're not, you know, progressing the story without being able to explore a little bit. It's a little easier to figure out which way you're not supposed to go and which way you are supposed to go, so you can, you know, explore. All right, now my gripes, my criticisms, because I've been talking really like glowingly about this game, right? And rightfully so, but I have a few criticisms. They're not like terrible, but I wish they were different. The first thing is, so when you're in the like hub world or whatever, you can free aim and shoot. Sometimes it's for items or, you know, environmental interactivity, but sometimes you could shoot enemies that are walking around or whatever and before you get in a battle, but it doesn't do anything. So, you know, I'm again coming off a metaphor where you could like attack in the world, do a little bit of damage to them, have them stunned or whatever before you get into the main battle. I wish they had some of that. I don't get what's the point of being able to shoot them and it doesn't do anything. I mean, if it does do something and I got it wrong, y'all let me know, but I definitely was shooting something 8 million times and nothing was happening. So that's one of my gripes. The other gripe when it comes to battles is the fact that, again, pairing the metaphor a little bit, the fact that you can't retry a battle immediately, whether it's right at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, whatever. If you know, at some point in the battle, you're going to know, like, okay, I can't win this, or I messed up too many times, I want to try it again. But you have to just keep skipping your turn, let them, you know, don't dodge, let them hit you or whatever, so the match can end. And then after it's over, you might have to, you know, depending on where you started the battle from, you got to like run over to the enemy again and fight it. Like, it just gets really tedious. Like, And I saw a video where they were talking with the developers, and some people were asking like, "Hey, do you have a retry button?" Like, and they said maybe in a future update they'll add it. It's not as simple as we think it is, which I never thought it was, but I think that would help the game tremendously. Like that should be the new quality of life standard for these types of turn-based video games. And then my last two gripes have to do with kind of the open world or overworld and the like traversal. So the first thing is there's no fast travel. Like there's fast travel within a level between you find these expeditioner flags. You can rest at and things like that, and you can fast travel between them. But as far as the overworld, like world is big. Like once you get to near the end of the game, it's like, yes, it's cool. You can traverse on SK and go for a swim or fly through the sky. You can do all that, but there's no way to get places faster, and like that really annoyed me. Once I was able to fly and kind of clean up some later things in the game, that it was, yeah, man, I don't know why there's no fast travel. And then the other thing with that is not being able to mark the map. So again, you might go to an area and it's like, okay, this is too tough for me, or I can't get past this area yet, or there's an item here, or I want to buy this thing but I don't have enough chroma, and there's no way to remember. Like I was flying around like, this sounds like the place I was at before. Like I couldn't figure it out. So if they could add that, which that one to me seems a lot easier than the fast travel. I think they could add that, some type of mark in the map, whether I gotta draw on it, I gotta just put a little star, like something. No open world to me that big should have a map with things to find and no way to mark. That to me is something they gotta fix in the next update. And then now let's talk about the lasting appeal. So according to howlongtobeat.com, it says that the game, if you just mainline it, will take you a little under 30 hours, so 27 and a half hours. If you do the side quest, it'll be 41 and a half. And if you are a completionist, it'll be 63 hours. So as I said, I did the majority of the things in the game as far as like fighting all the main bosses and everything except that bastard Simon. Listen, when you hear the name Simon, just run the opposite way. Just don't even bother him. But yeah, it was 72 hours for me, and I did the majority of everything. The only thing I didn't do was, like I said, the Simon fight. I think there's a Clair fight, and then there's an endless tower, which is more like a gauntlet you can go through. I did half of it, which I mean, it is what it is, but for the most part, you can probably finish the game in half that time. Now, if you want to explore, get stronger, and be able to finish the game a little easier, maybe you'll be on the 50 to 60 hour range. But again, they made it palatable for a lot of people. If you don't want to spend that much time, go through it at your pace, maybe come back later. There's a new game plus mode if you want to do that. I haven't done it yet, and I'm not sure if I will anytime soon, just because I just finished the game. So maybe later, if I get that itch again, I'll try it. But yeah, there's, for people that want to just get in and get out, not too long, great story. And then for people that want to explore the world a lot longer, plenty to do. And that's my review. So Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, great first indie game. Sandfall Interactive did what they need to do. They're obviously fans and paid a lot of homage to older JRPGs and things like. They even said that there's some areas that have that like fixed camera view from like the old PS1 JRPG. So they did what they need to do. Great voice performances, great casting, great story, just great everything, great battle system. This is one of those games where it's like, again, these generational games. When we talk about Final Fantasy VII, Ocarina of Time, Half-Life, Mass Effect, like these great games that define a generation. I think even though we're more than halfway through a generation, this came at a great time. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at, other games coming out. It's like, they're going to compare it to this. Like, is this game like Clair Obscur? If it's not, I'll play it, but in the back of my head, I'm going to be thinking, man, this is what's coming next from now. They have teased like maybe DLC. Some people are hoping like, okay, maybe we could play as other expeditions like Expedition 0 or 60. There's a story spoiler that I won't mention here, but there's basically like another group that maybe that'll be part of something. They're teasing it, so maybe next year. It's been selling great. I think they're over 3 million copies so far within a month, so definitely great. But yeah, y'all let me know. Have you played this yet? Are you into it? Is it something you want to try again if you're in Game Pass, or you want to just get on Game Pass, or you got a phone? Hey, you could play cloud streaming, pay $20 for the month. There are the game's $50, so definitely check it out. I definitely recommend it. It's my game of the year so far, and I don't know anything that's going to beat it. So y'all let me know again. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and I'll catch you on the next video.